There we go. There's that. And we are recording. So hello, welcome to the RISE workshop. I am Chelsea Young and my colleague Hannah Hurdle is here. And today we are going to go over evaluating and examining online sources. So what we're hoping that we get out of today's class is going to be comparing and contrasting the differences and the similarities in various types of online sources, as well as examining sources in order to determine their reliability and their trustworthiness. So kind of how we're going to do that, we have a little video for you to watch. We're going to look at how to find trustworthy sources online. We have a walkthrough of a website that we're going to do. We have 2 websites that are available and you get to pick them. Then we have an activity for you to do. Then there is time for discussion and debriefing, as well as any questions that you have. So to go ahead and get us started, just to make sure we're all on the same page, the definitions for the word just flew out of my head. Okay, so the terms that we're going to use in today's class, these are the definitions that we're referring to, just to kind of make sure, again, we're all on the same page. So research is looking for information on a topic that will help you prove a claim. Evidence, anything that can be used to support your research question. And sources, articles or other kinds of information that you consult or cite in your final project, paper, etc. No, okay. So real quick, stop the share. Let me give me 1 second to get that. No, go away. Okay. To get the video pulled up. Just a second, let me share it again. Okay. So closed captions, big screen. Now I will shut up and we're going to have the Stanford Nerd Squirrel talk to you about evaluating sources.
This video will show you how to evaluate sources by looking at the author, the audience, the review process, the currency, and the perspective. Please see our other videos on how to search databases and the catalog. Stanford's Nerd Squirrel found a lot of sources by looking through books, magazines, newspapers, journal articles, and websites for material to support its arguments for a research paper. Nerd Squirrel has even been to the Stanford University archives to find primary source materials. But what materials are acceptable for a research paper? How does the Nerd Squirrel decide? It's not easy, but Nerd Squirrel is up to the job. Nerd Squirrel can detect which sources are the best by following these steps. Step 1. Who created the source? Is the author credible? An expert in the field? Is there a list of references or a bibliography? Step 2. Who is the author speaking to? The general public? Experts in the field? Special interest groups? Step 3. Has the source been reviewed by scholars in the field for accuracy and credibility? Databases let you limit your search results to scholarly, peer-reviewed articles. Step 4. How recent is the source? And does it matter? Sometimes older is better. Step 5. What is the purpose of the source? Is it trying to educate? Provide factual information? Influence? Sell something? You can still use the source as long as you acknowledge its bias or perspective. Step 6. Let's look at domains. Some domain names are considered more credible than others. .edus are educational sites, and they are usually trustworthy. Sometimes, though, people can post information that universities are not aware of or do not condone. For example, This article on gun control is on the Duke University's People page, and it asks you to join the NRA at the bottom. The tilde in the address bar can be a giveaway that this is a personal website and may not be sanctioned by the educational institution in the URL. .gov sites are created by government agencies and are also generally trustworthy. You have to be more careful about .com sites. Some are trustworthy. Other .com sites are trying to sell you something. While .org sites are created by organizations, some are trustworthy and some are not. Always independently research the organization. Don't rely on the website's About page. Other ways to learn about the website are to check the Who Is record to find out who sponsored the page. Dig into the policies of the organization and read news articles or reports about the organization. To highlight the differences in sources, let's look at this example. Nerd Squirrel searched for Martin Luther King Historical Examination in SearchWorks and found many scholarly books. This Stanford.edu site is an example of a reputable one. Many academic articles that come from databases are online, so they may appear on a .com website. Next, Nerd Squirrel searched the ProQuest database for Martin Luther King Historical Examination. Just like the SearchWorks result, this academic database is also a reputable site. For its next test, Nerd Squirrel searched for Martin Luther King Historical Examination, this time using Google Scholar. As expected, these results look good and are from reputable sites. Just because it's the internet does not mean it's factual. For its final test, Nerd Squirrel did the same search, but this time just Googled it. The first Google result is from a .org domain that even has Martin Luther King in the URL. That was easy. It looks professionally designed, it has a civil rights library link, and even a pop quiz for students. This is a perfect time for Nerd Squirrel to review its checklist. Who created it? Who is the author speaking to? Has the source been reviewed? How recent is it? What is the purpose? What is the domain? Remember to search the organization independently. The first step on the checklist was to identify the author. This website does that on the bottom of the page. The author is Stormfront, and the link might tell you more about who put the site together. Oh my! Even though this is not a reputable site, you might want to use it in your paper anyway. It depends on the point you want to make. But it's important to acknowledge the author's perspective. Nerd Squirrel might have thought that finding reputable sources online was easy, but now it's learned the importance of evaluating each source critically. Nerd Squirrel has finished evaluating its sources. That was tough, but that's what it takes to be a real scholar at Stanford.
So I'm going to stop sharing that page. I hope that y'all found that one fun. No, didn't mean to do that. Let me get back to our screen. So now we have this Mentimeter, kind of just like a poll. If you can, either on your computer or on your phone, if you can go to menti.com and put in the code that we have here, and then just answer the question, why do you think we should evaluate or examine or evaluate information?
And make sure that you go to menti.com and not mentimeter.com. Because if you go to mentimeter.com, it's going to make you log in, and you don't have to log in if you go to menti.com. It just asks you for that code. One person's answered. We'll give you a couple more minutes. Okay, both people have answered the poll. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, thank you. There it goes. Okay, so trustworthy and reliable sources. So there's just, as the Nerd Squirrel said, there are different ways that you can evaluate your online source. And something that it didn't mention, but as you're going through and you're reading the article, whether it's like a news story, whether it's like a blog that you found, is it an article? Does it have hyperlinks to other sources? Especially like if you're reading a newspaper article online, most of the time they'll link to things that they've previously written about or to other things that relate specifically to that topic. Checking that those hyperlinks work is a good way to kind of like make sure that that information is reliable. Is the information they're linking to credible as well? So that is just one way you can kind of like start off some of your research or start off some of your evaluation as you're doing your research. As the Nerd Squirrel said, looking at who is the author of the story. Who's the one who wrote it? Is it someone who's an expert in that field? Is it someone who's writing an opinion piece in the newspaper? What might their perspective be and how could it possibly give bias or not to the piece that they're writing? Looking at who the publisher is. Is it an academic journal? Is it a magazine that focuses like on just one particular topic? Is it a newspaper source? Anything like that, just looking at who published it and whether or not that will give bias to what they publish or what they don't publish. And if you're looking at a news story, checking to see whether it's an opinion piece or an editorial piece. An opinion piece will definitely be more skewed to whatever the writer's personal bias is, whereas an editorial piece might be a little bit more objective. And then looking at with what does the site end with? Is it a .gov site? Is it a .com site? Is it a .net site? Looking at any of that and kind of like doing a little research on what that company is, what that organization is, to kind of help give you an idea whether that is a reliable source as well. Is there a date on the article? Does the website have a creation date? Some things will, they'll post, oh, this was published today, October 26, 2021, and then it, at 9:05 a.m. And then there's an update at 12:07 p.m. So sometimes you can see that, it's updated with new information, or it's gone back and it's fixed information that they might have gotten wrong at the beginning. Sometimes it has dates, sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad if it doesn't have a date on it. It just can make things a little bit harder to tell how old or how new something is. And sometimes the site has a creation date, like, this website was founded on this day, or, we renewed our copyright on this day. So just kind of looking at that just to kind of see, how new or recent things might be on the website. As always, you can Google the publication's name, see what others have to say about it. Do others say that this is, someplace good to find reliable information? Is this someplace that publishes, just biased pieces? Just kind of looking at that and seeing what there is to say about that company. So this is the fun part. We have 2 different websites with articles on them, and you get to pick which article, which site we're going to do. You can unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat. We have History.com, the Nikola Tesla files declassified is one source. And then the second source that we have is from the Washington Post. The media called the lab leak story a conspiracy theory. So let me know which one you want to walk through, and we will kind of do a walkthrough as we go together. So you can either leave yourself unmuted to kind of talk about it, or you can always put things in the chat. The Washington Post. Ooh. Okay, so we have one saying Washington Post, one saying history.com. We will battle it out. Which one do y'all want to pick?
I mean, we have time, so you could just show them both and just talk about different things.
Okay.
Compare them and contrast them.
So let me copy the first one. Should have done this earlier just to make sure I had it ready. No, I don't want this. Fiddlesticks. Let me see. Let me stop sharing real quick. Let me see if I can maybe pull it up in a different database. Or not database, I'm sorry, different web browser. Maybe it will let me open it without asking me to subscribe.
It's letting me look at it, so if you can't get it to work, I could just share it.
Okay. I do believe I've gotten it to work. So give me just a second to get that pulled up. Okay, can y'all see it just fine?
I can see it.
Okay, so the title of this one is The Media Called the Lab Leak Story a Conspiracy Theory. Now it's prompted corrections and serious new reporting. So again, you can unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat. What would you kind of begin to look for when you were to look at this article? What would you kind of begin to look for to evaluate this, to see whether it's credible and reliable? If it lists any sources in the article. So it does look like they do hyperlink to things, which is good. Let's see. Sometimes they'll put things like works cited or sources. I believe they typically do those at the end, but sometimes they do sprinkle them throughout. This one says NPR reported in April 2020. So this would be linking to that original report. It looks like that link works. So one cool thing about this one, it shows you like some FAQs, some fact checkers kind of as you go down. So it doesn't look like it has like a works cited at the end of this particular article, but it does link to things within the article. So that is always something you can go through and kind of check those and see whether there's those linked to other good sources. Anything else? The author. So this lists that there are 2 authors. One of the really cool things that you can do, like whenever you can sometimes select the author and you can see kind of like a little bit more information about them. It gives kind of like a small little bio, like what their education is, have they received any awards, does it list any other articles that they've written, different things like that. So it gives you a little information on who the authors are. So you kind of get a little bit of a background on them as you're going through.
It also, if you scroll down, it shows other articles that they've written. And it has different ways that you can connect with them, which is important.
Yeah, so it says like latest from Jeremy Barr, and these are other articles that he has written for the Washington Post. Anything else? One of the things I like, you can see when it was posted. So this was published June 10th of this year at this particular time. So that you can kind of see like when it was published. Another thing that I like to do, and this is kind of, you've looked at the author, now you can kind of look at the publishing company. So this is the Washington Post. And most of the time, what I like to do if I'm going to kind of like research the company, I like to look at their About Us page. So you kind of get an idea what they say about themselves. And you can always kind of Google the company, like reviews of the company. What do other people say about it? Does it kind of match what they are saying that they're trying to do themselves? So you can see kind of like different things that they've kind of listed. There's an About Us newsletter of authors, so it gives you more information on the different people who are writing for them. So it does give a lot of kind of like information about them. There's About the Post. You can see here, there's like newsroom policy and standards. So there's like a lot of information, so you can kind of like find out about them, what their policies are and different things like that, that they're trying to show you. They're like, this is what type of company we are. This is kind of like the level that we say our material is. Is there anything else y'all would search for as y'all go through? I don't know. Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and stop share real quick. And I will pull up the other one that we were going to look at, the history.com. Just a second. Okay, so this is the other one. This is the history.com one. The mystery of Nikola Tesla's missing files. So what would be something that y'all search for? Maybe something different from the ones that we've mentioned in the other ones. Remember the Stanford Nerd Squirrels checklist.
One I know we didn't mention in the last one was the URL, what kind of website it is.
So as you look at this one up here, you see that it is a .com site. So then you kind of have to look at what the company is. It's history.com. So in looking at history.com, is that something that is, known for producing factual work? Is it known for entertainment's value?
Yeah.
Is it?
Sorry, you can go.
I was actually going to say you can go.
Just thinking about who's the audience. Are they trying to sell something? Are they trying to provide information? That's also important to keep in mind. What is the organization or publication's main goal?
And then you can also kind of look at the article, what was published, is that particular source, is it trying to persuade you about something? Is it just giving you the information? Is it trying to change your mind about something or anything like that? So just kind of like looking at even, what is the overall message of the article, of the source, and what might that be trying to do? Is there anything else y'all would look for? Don't be shy, I'll pick on people.
I think we've covered most of it. So if we want to move forward, I think we're good.
Well, then I will stop sharing that. And then let me get back to our presentation. So now we are going to have an activity for you to go through. We will put the link to the Google form in the chat. If y'all can click on that, using the prompts in the form, explore the articles, the sites, the publications, kind of look through them, and you will have to decide whether the sources are reliable or unreliable. And you'll select those, and there's one last question at the end, and that part will be done, and we're almost to the finish line.
I'm going to pause the recording for this part.
So this is the form, just to make sure we're all on the same page as we're going through it. The things to consider as you're going through each of the articles is looking at who's the author, an expert in their field, who's the publisher. You can go to Google and type in the publication name, see what other people have to say about it. And then on the About Us page of the website, what does the site say about the author or the company itself? Then next, you're going to want to look at the relevance current. Is there a date on the article? Is there a creation date for a site? How recent is it? And then you're going to look at the trustworthiness. So like, what does the site end with? Is it a .com? Is it a .org, a .gov, a .edu? Are there links in the articles? You know, do they have hyperlinks in there? Does it link out to other things? And if they do those links actually work? Is it a news story? Is it an editorial, an opinion piece? Or is it something that, you know, is a little bit more factual? And so what you will do is you'll select the link to the article. It'll pull the article up. You can kind of look over it. You can kind of look at the company, different things like that. And then whenever you're back on this page, you'll select whether it is credible or not credible. And you'll do that for each of the articles that we have up here listed. We have, I believe, 4 articles for you to kind of look at and evaluate. Once you've done that, we have one last question, which is write down your findings in the space below for each article before you submit it. So if you can answer that and hit submit, that would be awesome sauce. Does anybody have any questions, anything they want me to kind of, me or Hannah to kind of go over as you're going through this? You can feel free to ask questions. One more Menti that we would like for you to answer. So just again, go to menti.com and type in the same code. So after evaluating and examining some sources, how do you feel? You know, do you feel like you know more than you did before, less, same? So let's go and answer that, and then we can move on.
We've had one response, so just waiting. Got another minute for the other one. Okay, both students have responded.
Okay. So next we have discussion and debriefing. I would like us to answer, let's say, about 2 of these. So I will, if nobody wants to put it in the chat or unmic and ask one of these questions and kind of give your answer, I will randomly pick one of these and call on somebody to answer it. Anybody feel brave?
Is your question again?
Mm-hmm.
Is your question again?
Oh, ask the question again?
Yeah.
So on the screen that I'm sharing, there's a number of different questions. If you want to pick one of them and give your answer to it, we can kind of like discuss it. You can ask any questions this time as well if there was something you felt you needed a little more clarification on. So it looks like Avery has asked the question, what skills did you learn that make you feel more confident? So what would your answer to that be? What skills did you learn that make you feel more confident about evaluating online sources?
Well, for me, then how to know the true source of article or information, because before I don't normally look at the source. I don't bother to look at the author. I don't bother to look at the dates. I don't also bother to look whether it is .com, .edu, .org, and so on and so forth. But with the seminar or lecture of today, I can boldly say that I can know how to determine whether the article is credible or not credible. I can determine whether the author is credible or not, and I can determine whether the information is credible or not. Thank you.
Okay. And it looks like Avery said she learned how to better look in the article and find the author's credibility. So awesome. So let's pick one more real quick and we can discuss it. And then if there's any questions, we can answer them at that time. So do you feel like you have developed the skills to determine if a source is reliable or trustworthy? Why or why not? Yay, I'm glad our presentation was able to help.
Do you want to go ahead and move to the next part?
So last is questions. If you can't think of anything at the moment, that's fine. If you come up with something later, you can always reach out to Hannah and I. We've listed our email information down as well as our office phone numbers if you want to give us a call. But at the moment, do you happen to have any questions for us? Anything you want us to clarify or go over?